desk get any lower? Ugh. The new desk I have is a little bit tall for the chair that I have to go with it. It's much more comfortable when I switch to standing mode, but I don't want to start the day in standing mode, so I'm just going to deal with it, but I need to get new chairs. Anyway, let's see. So what's going on today is I have this API that's I've been workshopping a lot and making careful progress on, and it's pretty much ready to go. I'm going to detail it a little bit more, add in the last few features that I need to get added in, to really feel like I've got the solid basis that everyone else can start using it as soon as it's available and not need immediately 3 more features added or something like that. So the main things it's got right now the main things that I need to get in there that right now that it doesn't have. It's got store, load, free, and the allocs, but it doesn't have the getters that describe the managed objects. So basically, these 2 calls here are responsible for getting you your managed objects. They're the source of managed objects. And then these down here all take managed objects and operate on them. So the thing that's missing is a couple of getters to get some basic information back. In case you just wanted to take advantage of the fact that it's available, you could always store this kind of stuff yourself too. But we want like a managed object get item size. Managed object get item count, managed object type, managed object get type, managed, and then finally there's managed scope, managed object get containing scope, get scope, get containing scope. I don't know, I've got my API review board here in the chat with me. What does get containing scope make you guys think of? Get containing scope. I think that's the best name I can think of for it. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to just try to implement these without too much fuss. So the managed scope I'm going to go up to buffer get managed scope real quick. Yeah, that's just one of those. Okay. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the way this is laid out, it's just hi ID is literally all there is to it. But let's do this a little bit carefully though. I want to only return the scope if it actually exists. I don't want to give them a nonsense scope. So Wait, airplane mode, like on a laptop, was messing with 4coder? It must have been affecting how it gets fonts. Does new Windows get fonts on the network? I feel like relying on system fonts is just a bad idea. I should just have never gone that way and just always use like hard-coded TTF paths as the method. What do you mean, for example? What are you talking about, Flying Solomon? I don't follow. If I wanted to move my macros to allocate in the new way, I could save it as an object with function pointers. Oh, are you talking about storing function pointers in a managed object? Yeah, if you already have a bunch of callbacks and you want to have a smooth transition, you could just store your callback pointers into the managed object for now. But they won't get called on deletion or something like that. So the Burke is real asks, is contextual highlighting, such as highlighting type def types, somewhere on the roadmap? Not really. I mean, I don't plan to put that on the roadmap. What I do have on the roadmap is getting to the point where there's customizable highlighting, but you know, actually doing all of the parse to find your types for you and then highlighting them is a little beyond how far I want to go. I want to take things in a slightly different direction. Once I have the basics in place to support all languages, I'm going to help get the basics in place that would let anyone who wants to support a particular language do that and make it as easy as possible. But I don't actually want to be the one who has to implement that for any language at all. So it's probably going to exist someday. It just won't come from me anytime soon. That's the short answer. You're talking about macros as in, I see, fine, macros as in keyboard macros, right? Duh. Okay. So this is how I get the containing scope from an object. It just happens to be the highlight portion of the object's ID. And then I make sure that workspace actually exists, and if it does, I return it. Otherwise, I return 0. This way, if you have some garbage object that's a part of a freed scope, it will not actually try to give you a scope back. It will give you a 0 so that you know you don't actually have a scope there. Now we want to look at these other ones. These are going to get a little bit more similar to this stuff. So I'm going to say let's pull that all the way up here. So for type, let's do this. I have dynamic variables h. Yeah, so I want to change this. I have types.h. We're going to have these like that. Not sure why I always spell error all caps. It's kind of a weird habit, I guess. Don't need these so much. And then we want to just return, so we're going to do this stuff again. Except, let's see, that's going to be a managed object type error. Yeah, 4coder doesn't touch the internet at all, so the fact that airplane mode would affect it is very bizarre. I'm still not convinced that airplane mode didn't somehow disconnect you from system fonts, although maybe you're not using a system font. What would confirm for sure whether or not it had something to do with system fonts would be if you confirmed that in airplane mode it still does or does not mess up when you use one of the built-in, like one of the TTF files that 4coder is packaged with. If it can load that and it works, then it's the system fonts. If it can't do that, then maybe it's the free type library? Yeah, I'm going to switch back to local fonts. I thought it would be clever and useful to add system fonts, but it's actually just adds lots of bugs and failure points and differences between the operating system layers that are hard to reconcile and all sorts of stuff. So by the time we're early beta, it's going to go back to the way it was. I just liked it because I don't like having to ship fonts with 4coder. I don't like packaging them in. So I didn't like. So basically, I was saying, look, if you want to use a font, you're just going to have to put it in there yourself. And I was like, well, if they're going to have to put it in there themselves anyway, why not pull it from the operating system? But the reason why not to pull it from the operating system is it's a pain in the butt. I think the best I can do is just say I'm shipping one font with 4coder so that you have one there in case you don't have any others handy. And then you need to put anything else you want in there every time you get a new build yourself. Just seems like the best way. Or maybe make like a config thing that's like list of font files, and then you can link to hard directories anywhere in your computer or something. I do. When I distribute with an open source font. It just increases the size of the distributable. Look in Valbus. Look in the fonts folder and see the name of the font files available, and then when you select a font, make sure you're selecting one of those. Nax points out I could also let the OS do all the font rendering itself. Yes, if I switched off of OpenGL, I could do like a per operating system font rendering thing. That would actually make some things easier because then I'm not responsible for querying fonts out of the system. I get the extra advantage of when I do the query, it's like a soft query, and I'm just using their API to render too, so those things will be more likely to work together. That would also lead to the fonts, like on Windows, for instance, looking like all the rest of the applications on Windows. And so when I provide alternate renderer options, that might be something I think about, which is I think that it's appropriate in the case of 4coder, since the only thing the renderer ever does is rectangles and glyphs. I think it's appropriate for font handling to be considered one of the responsibilities of your renderer. Although maybe it's sub-modularized so that your OpenGL renderer doesn't have to be implemented twice for free type and something else. But as long as that's true, then it's possible to make a renderer that does OS fonts directly, which would be kind of a neat thing to have available for people who really like all the fonts on their computer to look the same. All the text on their computer to look the same. So anyway, so for this one, what I want to do is actually more like this. I get the header putter. In order for that to work, I have to use models. I get the header putter and I go, I guess this thing here needs models too, actually. And I go, okay, give me the managed object type. If header putter does not equal 0, if 0 is less than type, or if type is less than 0, or here, let me do it this way. If type is less than 0, or managed object type count is less than or equal to type, then type equals managed object type error, return type. Alright, so that's how we get the type, and we make sure we return error unless it's a real type and it actually set up correctly. Younglen asks where I got the idea for how Control O works. So basically, it was just the obvious way to improve Emacs's Control O. So in Emacs, what it would do is you would put this in, and it wouldn't show any of this list here. It would just take all of this nonsense and put it into this bar up top in like colored text. So 4coder used to do this. You'd have your path, and then you'd have the list of continuations, and the list was way too long to fit on here. So you'd see like .get / 4coder API / and then you could start typing stuff in and be like, I want, you know, clipboard, and then when you type in clip, now all you see is that, and you could press enter and complete. And so I had that, and I was just like, you know, this list, you can never see very much of it, and it's lame. Why don't I just switch it to a list, like, that is expanded out vertically, where you have a lot more space? And that's just how we ended up with this. Alright, so next up we want to get, it's going to be kind of like down here. I have to get the item count and the item size. So I'm going to do something very similar to what I do in this call here to get the item size. Only difference is we'll be returning 0 here, and we'll be returning the item size directly right here. Alright, and then one last time, we'll be doing this right here, and it'll be the item count. Now, for that to work out, I'm going to need to make one more array that gives me the offsets to the counts. So count offsets, count. Now, one thought that occurs to me is, why don't I have a standard header and get rid of these two arrays? I feel like that would be smarter. each of these, we'll just have a managed object standard header. We'll call this stand header, stood header. And let's see, this will have a stood header again that's hidden, and well, this will just actually not have anything else. That's its entire existence, is the stood header. This will have the stood header. It won't need these, but this will be the hidden stood header. And then this stuff we still need expanded out. So that and that overlap, and then these are additional. Okay. Although it's not clear why I wouldn't just do this. I could also make my life easier by going union 8-byte alignment struct there. Now these are just structs that have to start with a stood header, and this shit can go away. Alright, so now I just have to fix up all the stuff I just broke. Right now, full screen, you'll find it under bindings. Oh, I didn't add it to the list. That's my mistake. Technically, this is not even going to exist when I ship anyway, because I'm switching to the listed. I'm switching to the listed version. Of all the commands, so the long list switch is actually being removed. Like long commands, the switch list, that's all disappearing, and I'm switching to just having a list. A lister for commands. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that's missing over there, technically speaking. Anyway, we're going to ignore it because, like I said, this isn't actually going to exist in the end. Let's track down more errors. Yeah, it used to be control page up, but someone wanted control page up to page up and control page down to jump to the beginning and end of files, and I was having a hard time finding better bindings for it. So I had to change the full screen one. Home end takes you to the beginning and end of lines. Control page up and control page down are top and bottom. Okay, so now what we want to do is just track down a place where we can rely on that. So we're going to just do a couple of asserts real quick. Assert that the managed object get item size on the marker handle equals the size of a marker. Also, I have to remove all these times markers things. Okay. If there are any others that I've forgotten about, we'll find them when we're debugging. And this will count as my comprehensive test. Alright. Now we need to debug. I know that we're not going to even reach those asserts because we already have a bug in here that I need to find. Well, technically we'll reach the asserts, but hopefully we won't hit them. But even if we do, we won't really be able to deal with it right away. Okay, jump to there. Good. Jump to there. Oh, it worked. Well, that's not good. Hey, there we go. There's the crash I was looking for. Now, what is going on here? We're doing a heap assert good. This is happening after a heap free. So the very first assert good is failing. How did we end up in that state? How did it fail here and not on the end of the previous operation? We have one free node, a couple of in order nodes. Wait, we have one free node, which is C18, and our in order nodes start at 1B88 and end at 1C08. Why is there no 1C18? That's weird, right? I guess only I would know what I'm talking about at this point, so sorry to bring you guys all into this. The assert that failed is that it's asserting that node previous next equals node. And it's asserting because node previous next actually equals 0. Even though that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, whoever this guy's previous is totally borked. What I'd like to see is if I take heap in order, so you know, a very real possibility is that I am trampling one of the nodes in the heap at some point along the way. I mean, all of the reads and writes are supposed to be checked, so you never can, from the user code, get a pointer into the heap and start trampling it. But does you asserted previous that node next equals 0, right? No? Where do you see that I asserted node next to? Is this text too small for you to read the not equals? Yeah, sorry, I wasn't trying to make fun of you. I was trying to figure out what you're talking about, Flying Solomon. Alright, so in order has its next looks good, but its previous is borked. And so if I go to this node, its next is borked like that. How did I end up? So I guess I start on the Sentinel. And that's right, so I'm immediately checking the Sentinel's previous next goes to the Sentinel and it doesn't. Okay. But how did we end up in a case where it was failing here at the beginning of an operation. I mean, no changes happened to the heap here, which means whatever messed it up happened before we even called the free. Strange, right? And the baddest news of all is that this is going to be really hard to track down, because there's various code paths that all lead to that call. That's super fundamental. So I don't know what's going wrong. I don't know if it's inside the heap code or outside the heap code. I don't know how I'm going to isolate this. How am I going to isolate it? So first thing I'm going to do is I need to know more clearly. I'm going to start marking things. So, well, let me trigger it one more time and read the code path we were on first. Alright, I want to see how right character even gets here. So what's happening is we're freeing an object. Okay, so this is object free that is failing. Right character parameter. So we created the object. Okay, so it's clearly just nonsense. Oh. Interesting. So I didn't set these to ones yet. Let me walk through that and see how that's leading to a bug. Because the user is not supposed to be able to issue anything that would actually lead to a crash. I don't want them to have to debug by hitting some crazy crash in the inside and then figuring out that it's their problem later, but that it crashed inside me. I want to sanitize it so that their bugs clearly look like their bugs and not like mine. You know what I mean? Alright, so first things first, I say allocate for me one of these things. Item size 8, count 1, buffer ID 12. There we go. So that seems fine. We get back a result that indicates this thing here, and then we come in here. These are things get a little weird. Count. It's going to get the idea that it's copying a lot more data than it really is. First index times count, count times, and so now I see the problem. My store and load don't actually check the bounds like I said they should. And so we're trampling the heap. Okay, but that's fine. We have all the information we need to do bounds checking, which is what I meant to do. I just am tremendously bad at remembering what I've gotten done so far, I guess. So now what we want to do is get if 0 is less than or equal to first index, and first index plus count is less than or equal to item count, then continue on with these things. Now my options are I could either do this or I think I'm going to do this and return false if the range is bad. You know what I mean? I don't want a soft fail there, I want a hard fail. Alright, so now when I say I want to store data with that as the bounds, it'll come in here and go the total count. What is it? Okay, so I guess I don't have debug symbols right now. Or we're not up to date. That's right, 4coder does not support bitmap fonts because I'm only one person and I also don't like bitmap fonts that much personally. I don't hate people who like them, I just don't support you, that's all. And by don't support you, I mean I don't support your favorite font feature. But you know, you can patience, you know, all that stuff. Total jump count. Okay. And so it fails, and there we go. Now it shouldn't crash, it'll just have a bug, right? Since I'm not using the right bounds for this and this, I'm getting a bug here. Now to fix that, I should just have to change Yes, close. I should just have to change this into a 1 and this into a 1. Alright, so there we go. Now I have the item size stuff, like the query stuff working in the API. So that's the rest of the API. I think I don't want to do any more with it for now. There's still the possibility of a linked list thing, but that has some ramifications that I'm not totally prepared to deal with yet. So what do we want to do? We have a couple of problems. First, there's definitely still bugs that will lead to crashes in 4coder right now. I don't really know how to recreate them. We're running the version with debug symbols right now. The version we're running right here has the bugs, or at least it should have the bugs, and it's got debug symbols, so we should be able to see it if we just keep working. Excuse me. So, I have some options. I guess I'll run a little query of the chat, see what everyone's interested in seeing me do, because that went by way faster than expected. I can write documentation for the newest stuff. I can switch back to the buffer list, or to the lister stuff. There's still a lot of work to do there. Like, right now it doesn't sort anymore. When you do like this, it doesn't sort by most recently used. So like if I put dynamic variables there, you can see dynamic variables. It used to be that this would sort to the bottom since I already have it open, and now it just sorts right there. And then jump sticky is its next option, and then dynamic variables, and then jump sticky. It's like, I think just sorting by most recently used actually is all it's doing, because I think the internal, I think 4coder internally keeps that sorted order still, so that the iteration of the buffers happens to have that, but it doesn't do the smarter stuff like sorting scratch to the bottom like it used to. It doesn't sort this to the bottom or this to the bottom if I have them open. These are here still, so that's another thing I can work on. There's also the little matter of if I have one of these open and I do a build and then I jump, it doesn't close that. So there's a few like touch-ups to do on the existing listers. There's also the possibility of writing new listers. So let me make a quick list. I'm going to go quiet for about a minute here and make a list of about 4 options, and then I'll have a to-do list and ask you guys what you want to see first. Alright, I have a full list of things that we might want to take a look at today. I have it written down, so if we lose it when the 4coder eventually crashes, it'll be fine. So we have fix up existing listers, sort order, input quirks, add the command palette lister thingy, write documentation for all new APIs so far, possibly more coming still. Bug fixes from my bug report to-do list. Expand color palette and support customize or specialized keyword colors. So there's my ideas. Actually, there's a sixth one I just remembered. Expand color palette and support matching parent/brace unique coloring. Alright. Okay. I'm going to put in a divider on the chat. I will be the tiebreaker if there's still a tie after you go, Flying Solomon. If you pick a third thing that's different, then I will, then I'll tiebreak. Oh boy. Alright. Oh, Kiba just showed up and with a 4. Alright, we're doing bugs. You guys are the worst, but it's probably for the best that I do bugs. So here we go. Let's start from the top. Okay, so the most prolific problem that I keep getting reports on is this darn, Jim O0 has probably got the solution for this sitting around. It just comes in like every week, once or twice every week. Hooks. So something about file settings. Here it is. Something about the way treat as code and enable virtual whitespace and enable code wrapping work together is just completely busted and leads to all kinds of problems. So we're going to figure out why that is and fix it. Let me pull up my config just to see what the defaults look like. Enable virtual whitespace, true. Enable code wrapping, true. Now the bug report. Okay. So the problem is, if this and this both get missed, you're saying that none of the bools get set. Wrap line's getting set right here, though. Yeah, this is quite confusing. Treatise code is a little bit legacy, but I don't really feel like changing it right now. Okay. Alright, so we have treatise code, treatise to do, wrap lines, and lex without strings. Okay. We'll just assume that that's false. That's not really a player in this. So we come here, and if treatise code is true, I see. We have to either enable virtual whitespace or enable. That's where we're getting a miss. Okay. If we enable virtual whitespace, then we use this to determine whether or not we're wrapping lines, and then we enable virtual whitespace. If we enable code wrapping, I see. So there's nothing here that says like this, right? Yeah, I was looking around on Discord for it. I guess it's on our private convo. Okay, so a couple of things here. Lex without strings we can just set separately. That's just a setting. So I'm going to just pull this all the way out here. Okay, that's a non-concern. Now, if we're not treating it as to do, that part's irrelevant. This part down here just says, okay. So the goal of this here is not really being fulfilled correctly. What I should do instead is say if this is greater than or equal to this, then we're just going to set wrap lines to false and vert white space to false. Wrap lines. Okay, I kind of see where I want this to end up. It's going to be a little tricky to get there without introducing new bugs, but here we go. So, treatise to do. Lex without strings. Now if we're treating as to do, we're going to want, okay, wrap lines. So basically down here what we need to decide are the following things. We have the following decisions to make. We have to decide, do we lex without strings? Then we want to decide if we wrap lines. Where did the Lex call for this one disappear to? And look at the code the way it was when Jim sent it. Ugh, it's so I can't really understand the code you sent because it's just so complicated. I don't, like, I'm sure this is correct, it's just hard to figure out how this matches up with what I'm looking at here. Enable code wrapping. Where is the... I feel like I'm missing a part off the top that I actually need to. I don't know. Yeah, this prevents the pseudo buffers, the non-file buffers from wrapping. If you want them to wrap, you want to get rid of this shit right here. Okay. So all of this stuff works. It's these down here that are confusing. So we need to decide if we wrap lines, we need to decide if we have virtual white space, and we need to decide whether or not we lex at all. Those are the 4 decisions we need to make. So what I'm going to do is boil that down into this. If we lex without strings, we already have that one. If we wrap lines, if use virtual white space, virtual white space, and then the lex. Okay. Why does it go lex wrap line right here though? Don't know why it does that. Anyway, if lex, if use lexer, okay. Now what we want to do, I'm going to take all this. This is all just borked. We're going to ignore that. We're going to grab all this and make it a part of the... So this executes this thing, whereas this is the decision code. Now we don't have to mix and match this idea of keeping these things in order with getting the booleans sorted out. We can get the booleans sorted out and then they'll go in order nice and clean. Alright, so Jim has basically confirmed for me that this is gonna be the right way to do it, because it looks like all he needs is, in his fix, this catch-all that does these 4 in order with the 4 variables, and now we're just going to unify those 4 variables into these. There's sort of a conflation between the global config values, like here we're using the config value, and here we're using this boolean, so we're going to clean all that shit up. We're going to preserve this comment because it still applies. Okay. So now we want to decide buffer settings cleanly. First I want to make sure that none of these, so treat as code, wrap lines, okay. So wrap lines gets decided down here. And lex without strings. So if we're in Rust mode, we want to set Lex without strings to true. So that's why that gets set way up there. Okay, so that's just a setting of that. We can't really do anything about it. Okay, this is supposed to be treated as to do. I don't know why everything keeps changing on me here. Okay, so if we're not already treating it as to do, we check and see if these match. Now, was there a reason why we might be treating it as to do? No, there's not, except that someone might edit this code here to make one of the file extensions be a to-do file extension. So we'll leave that the way it is, do the match insensitive, treat as to do. Okay. Oh, this is if we're not already treating it as code that we do that check. That's fine. Alright. That way it doesn't matter what treat is to do was set to before, you know what it's set to now. No confusion. Okay. So now we need to get the rest of this logic working. So if we're treating it as to do, wrap lines, yes. Lex without strings, yes. Wait, wrap lines, yes. This is what's so confusing. So I guess the to-do does want wrapped lines. I don't know. This isn't the feature that I ever used, so I don't remember what the requested setup was for it. So there we go. We're going to just say these all start to false, and they get initialized over time. Okay, so if we're treating it as to do, these things happen. If we don't if not treat as to do, okay, what if we are treating it as code? Well, no, let's do that, yeah. Okay, so, no, that's not right. That's not right. Okay. There we go, that's right. So these are this is the threshold for the size, and this is the, which I've been meaning to bump up, by the way. 128, 64, 188. Plus 4, plus 60. Did I get that right? There we go. Okay. Jim asks, why don't you just take the wrap lines value from the 4coder config? So, partly it's because it's named enable code wrapping, which implies that's just talking about the files we treat as code. Code wrapping is quite a bit different from just text wrapping. I should probably have a setting for it, but for now I'm going to say we don't actually have a setting for it, and that's just what it is. Sorry. If you want it to all use the same setting right here, then eventually just keep asking me and I'll add another setting that you can control them both from here or something. Well, for one thing, what I ought to do is move this up here so that it's clear what things get treated as code. Yeah, I can see why this is confusing for people. I'm not really on an official list as far as I know, but I'll probably be able to see JAI sooner or later. I don't know. I mean, I know I hang out with Abner once in a while and he can show me stuff, but I've never sat and programmed with it. I don't know. The main difference between code wrapping and text wrapping is that code wrapping is a bit heavier duty. It has to do indentation work in parallel, like at the same time as wrapping work, whereas text wrapping does not need that. So I wouldn't want them to toggle at the same time. I do agree that there should be a setting for it, but I don't think that they should be the same setting necessarily, because it's possible that people will want text wrapping and not code wrapping. Of course, I don't have it, the way I have it set up right now is that you default to not have either, like to not have text wrapping, which I'm saying is the thing you more likely do want. So it's obviously all totally borked. We're going to try to fix it up today. Okay. So if we're treating it as code, then we're going to look at these settings here for whether we enable virtual whitespace and code wrapping. So wrap lines then goes to this. Okay. So wrap lines goes to that. Use virtual whitespace. Goes to that. And that goes to that. Yeah, I know that wrapping for text works. I'm saying that I'm not saying that this is a good defense, because what I'm saying doesn't make sense with the fact that text doesn't wrap by default and code does. But if you're likely to want to toggle them separately because text wrapping is a lighter weight operation, and so I don't have it tied to this because it's possible you want to turn off code wrapping but keep text wrapping. That's very likely. Like imagine you're writing a text like just a document, like a markdown file with long lines that are a single paragraph. You would want text wrapping, and that wouldn't mean you don't want code wrapping necessarily, and so I don't want to tie them to that single variable. That's what I'm saying. That does not explain why it doesn't default to wrapping text, and I agree that that's weird, and we're going to deal with that today. A lot of these names are quite poorly designed too. Like enable virtual whitespace doesn't say whether or not it's talking about in code or not. I'm trying to imply by its grouping that it does mean that, but it's not good. And changing those is very costly for everyone who relies on it, so yeah. Alright, so I think this actually is everything we need. I think I've recreated all of these features. Now when you're setting up a buffer settings, I just figured out where one of the bugs comes from. Okay. That's not a bug. I mean, this is for text level indentation. Whether or not it uses tabs and the width is not a part of the virtual whitespace system. This is for the text level indentation. The auto indenter is separate from the code flower. One must take care not to confuse them, since I have done a very poor job of distinguishing them. Alright. So we get from our initial inspection of the file these three values, which let us decide, as well as some other stuff, which let us decide these three values that let us decide four of these. And I think that the flow is quite clean now. If we're treating it as to do, we do that stuff. Else, if we're treating it as code, we do that stuff. Now the only thing I have to do to fix everything is to make this default to true. So now, and I want them all to set all three. So left without strings they won't set, but treat as code, wrap lines use virtualize that use lexer. So if well, like right here, for instance, I don't want to change whether or not it does either of those. Really, what I want is just this, actually. This is just len. Flying Solomon gives a vote of approval for virtual whitespace. I'm glad you like it. I've often said that I don't really get anyone who uses 4coder without virtual whitespace because it's really the only way in which 4coder differentiates from anything else. You might as well use Sublime, I think, if you're not going to use that feature. Jim, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. At least you and Casey don't use it. I don't know what reason you have, Jim. I'd be curious to know. Casey's only reason is that it makes the code not match in the debugger. So he cares more about the code looking the same between the editor and the debugger than he does about conveniently editing things. And he's actually proposed a way to fix this, which is he wants a harsher version that doesn't do virtual whitespace, but literally reflows code and will do things like deleting and inserting new line characters on the fly to do the reflow. And so basically he wants something that literally completely takes control of the white space. Which is probably, yeah, that's the opposite of what you're saying there, Jim. Right? You're saying you'd like to have control over the individual spaces sometimes to align things in blocks and stuff. And Casey's like, no, it doesn't take over enough. It doesn't manhandle all the white space as much as I need it to make it the way I want it. Are you saying you would do something like this? Is that what you're saying? How do you live with it constantly redoing that? Because, I mean, the text indenter will still mess you up, won't it? Flying Solomon's trying to send an example question, but Twitch keeps manhandling his code layout, so it won't work. Yeah. I'm not sure. Use slashes. Use forward slashes instead of spaces to make your point. That'll make it easier. Or underscores, whatever. Yeah, just put some character to indicate spaces for me. Then I'll be able to figure it out. In the meantime, I'm going to check this out, make sure normal stuff still happens. Okay, so that's getting treated as code with virtual whitespace enabled. We're gonna ship, we need to do the following things. I have these all in Scratch. Oh, it's on a different Scratch. Fix up lister, file lister sorting. File system lister missing, status. Alright, we got our example from Flying Solomon here. So, he says, what's the deal with airplane food? No, that's not him. Alright. Oh, I see, for for loops. That makes sense. Interesting. Okay. So, Flying Solomon, are you asking if it can do something like you have this and you want to, like, say, from here to here, align all the equal signs? Is that what you're asking if it can do? Because, I mean, obviously you can do this. If I put this into a virtual whitespace file, that'll stay aligned. Right, it'll let you put spaces after, like, it swallows up spaces at the beginning of a line, but at spaces in the middle of the line it doesn't manhandle. Incidentally, that's what Casey doesn't like about it. He wants it to manhandle all of the spaces, not just the indentation at the beginning of a line. He wants it to insert and remove new lines freely. I don't know how he expects it to work with, like, code like this where you intentionally leave a blank line. I don't know what it would do about, like, it sees an extra blank line. Is it allowed to swallow that up? How does it know when it is and isn't a good idea? I don't know how that's supposed to work, but something like this. This is actually pretty neat. I never tried using this to do feature, but maybe I should use it. I mean, look at this. Command lister, bugs. I like this quite a bit. Yeah, it doesn't have any smarts in there to auto-tablify things. The way you would do that is to use the stretchy tabs thing. Have you ever looked at stretchy tabs, or was it sticky tab? Elastic tabs, I believe it was called. Basically treating tab characters as column separators for a table and rendering your code that way so that you can just insert tabs to make everything align. I've thought about adding support for that, but it's quite an endeavor. I haven't committed to it yet. Yeah, you'd have to spam tabs throughout your code, and it would never look good in any other editor. Except for other editors that support elastic tabs. So the first big bug was this code wrapping problem. We'll mark that as fixed. Lister API. Done. Done. What is this one? What was the other API I just finished? Oh, like the managed cooperative memory API. Done. I'm building up a to-do list. I haven't done this in a long time. So then there's color palette expansion for keywords, brace matching, Alright, let me track down a list of bugs here. Remote desktop doesn't work. I am told. I haven't tried that. Let's see. Right now, you can't change a theme after you save a theme after you change it in the Alt menu. But there's good news. I've eliminated that feature anyway, so it doesn't matter. You can't change your themes using that thing because maintaining that UI is like just so much extra code for such a pointless little corner of the goddamn thing. Now what you can do instead is if you're right now we're running STB, you just go to your STB theme, and I mean I don't have it, the actual version that I need, but you can pull up your STB theme, edit it, and then there's a reload command, reload themes, a reload all themes option that'll reload your themes folder and apply it. So you can just edit the text file and then reload themes from now on instead of that menu, which was just a nightmare. It was like responsible for half the UI code that we removed when I switched to the new UI system. Alright. Yeah, multi-cursor, it's a top priority. It's so far. Here's the thing, it is a top priority. It's just that the tech tree that I have to traverse to get to multi-cursor has so many things along the way that it looks like it's taking me forever to get around to it. I probably won't try to do software rendering right away, but what I will have is this is other things I want to get done in the future type to-dos, and I'm going to move them one at a time into the current build as I retire things. So what we'll do is we'll add features, bugs. If this is caused by this, which I kind of believe, I expected it to be the renderer, then the feature we need is there we go. Thanks for the tip, MacGod, that helps. Okay, more bugs, more bugs. Nope, so much garbage. I should probably, I'm thinking of, I have enough money, I should probably pay for a new email that's bugs@4coder.net so that I can get all my bugs in one place and not mixed in with all the bullshit that I get emailed every day. Oh, I've missed this email from Simon. Now, when did I get this? I just noticed that trying to reload a somewhat big file doesn't seem to... Right, I get this once in a while. Alright, so we have reload big file. and we have so there's reload big file, and then there's, what's the other thing I need? I need yeah. So I think I'm going to do the undo upgrade in this build. Oh, I don't know. So hard to say. Maybe that should wait for the next build still. But one thing I do need in here is the visible markers. That includes line highlight, cursor, ghost cursor, or wire cursor, You know, Flying Solomon, I went down a crazy undo path once and I wasn't happy with it. If you can send me a reference to like an editor where I can try something like an undo tree, I will give it a shot. And Drunk Dane, once this stuff is in, we're like 2 builds away from seriously considering the feature you're asking for, multi-parser. The other thing I need is meta buffers. So we can do multi-cursor, and we can also do typing or commands in input bar. Alright, save that tab to look at it later. Thanks, Flying Solomon. Alright, now I need to keep going through my bugs. Let's see. Reloading big files, we got that one. Oh, the other bug was lexing scientific notation. And let's see, where was that email again? Okay. We have that crazy bug where Jim's file is blank even though it tries to load a real file. Four-coder console is a little bit too long-term for me to be dropping it in right now. That's like big picture. I'm not ready to drop that in yet. Control-Shift-O should work on the exclamation mark point, like the out of sync. If it's marked out of sync, Control-Shift-O should load the newest version. That's its primary purpose for existing, is to fix that when it happens. Basically, when you get out of sync, you either want to save what you have over the other file or load the other file back in. Oh, do all. Okay, well, as long as you're suggesting features. Reload all out of sync files. Okay, okay. Yep, that's done. I forgot to respond to the last few bug reports, so I'm responding now as I do everything else. My guess for Flying Solomon is that that's the best theory I have, which is that I'm getting a handle back that's like I'm getting back I'm the file is locked and I'm not doing anything to try to read a read-only / cooperatively shared permissions read, because my file API doesn't really distinguish between opening a file for reading and writing right now, which is a mistake. I need to rework it again to make it better. It's really annoying. I feel like I know now what I need to do to get it right, but I didn't know back then how to do things. Alright, keeping going through my second page of bugs here in the email address. Alright, bug in the meta generator. When outputting the file name, you do a replace. Let's take a look at that real quick. That should be an easy one. Let me save our to-do list. Open it over here. That to-do list is actually quite neat. Yeah, that isn't parsing correctly. If I do that, it does. If I do that, it does. So I just failed to put plus in as an option right there, I guess. Just my mistake. Okay. Now what we are seeing here is you do a replace / with. This is fine for keeping the right amount of slashes on Windows, but the character count is not updated accordingly. The above results in an extra character for each backward slash written into the metadata table file name size. Uh-oh. That is a problem, isn't it? Okay, so I need to... Let's pull this up. File.h 799. Right? How could this be at line 799 if the file... You're not looking at the... You didn't refer me to the right file there. No, live reloading isn't there yet. Alright, so It's not here. Is it metadata generator 799? Is that what you meant to send me to? No. Alright, let me just search for proc links. Here it is. I don't quite understand. Okay, so you're storing... So the problem here is that we're putting this right here, and it's telling the size, but the size is actually wrong because this string is an escaped string, the unescaped, so this is the unescaped size. Okay, cool. Yeah, everything that everyone asks for is like a very high level thing at the very top of a tech tree that I am slowly building towards, and they always ask me how's this going, and I'm like, you know, I haven't started it yet, but there's kind of like dependencies here. And I could rush to any of them. I could rush straight through and build a hacked version of the things I need to get to one of them, but we'll all be much happier if I fill out the tech tree properly along the way. Alright, so let me keep going through the emails a little bit more. Yep. Oh, here's a couple of issues from Simon. Simon always sending in the good detail work. Okay, so cancel search shouldn't bring up the search window. If no results, put message explaining that fact. Search buffer. New type matching pattern, struct name, race. There we go. Alright, thanks again, Simon. Let's see. Alright, this bug report comes with a repro video, so give me a sec to watch it. This is the disadvantage of doing the bug to-do list, is I have to sort through a bunch of people's private stuff that they've sent me, so y'all have to just sit here and chat with me instead of seeing stuff happen. Hey, this person's using the default 4coder theme. I love that theme, except that I got sort of sick of it after I used it for a while, but it's still so neat to see people use it. Okay. Oop. By the way, semi-related behavior question. If I open a switch list in the left view and go to the view to the right of that and open a switch list of that open switch list, and I try to trigger Control-Shift-T query, that query opens below the switch list. You mean it doesn't disable the UI mode? Yeah, that's not really intended. Okay. And let me just grab that repro case real quick. Alright, good. Thank you, Flying Solomon, for speeding that up. Okay. Oh, that's a feature request. This is what I need to separate out the emails. Right, okay, so here we have the solution to one of the bugs I have listed that was sent in. So we want to look at search.cbp, string.string does not equal 0. This should just be list query parameters, change active. Yeah, so this should just be if size is greater than 0, right? There we go. So that fixes this bug, I believe. Although I'm going to just test it first. Alright, so find cancel. No, it still brought that up. Find 4. I guess there's all my for loops, and if I do Control Shift 4 and then, yeah, it's still bringing up the search window. Empty string, there it is. Cancel, there it is. Okay, why is that not working? Didn't rebuild, that's why. Also, how did I miss this one here? Okay, I think I got them all this time. Find cancel. Aha! Find for boop, for cancel, for enter. There we go. Okay. So that one is done. Let me keep going. I don't think I'm at the end of these yet. Crash after disabling virtual white space and reloading. Interesting. Right, I remember this one. So let's pull up search.cvp. Somewhere in here there's a thing that actually word complete. List all locations. Okay. Okay, so the idea is we're grabbing each search match and then we're printing it, and what we want to add is, okay, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I just need to figure out it's on Scratch. Okay. New line equals push an array onto the scratch, one char. New line equals that. And there we go. Let's see. Separate distinct buffer groups by new line. Let's see if that works. Not really a bug, but it's the next thing in the list and it's easy to get it right. Hey, Xanazard, thanks for the comment. That is the kind of thing that keeps me going. Alright. So we want to load up the layer. And then I'm going to do a for. Well, that didn't work at all. So what did I do wrong? Oh, I see. I can still jump through it the way I always do, no problem. And I can look through the different buffers like this. Neat, I kind of like this. I'll have to leave it in for a little bit, see if I'm okay with everything this implies. But I think this is good. Okay. And so now while I'm in here, I can take care of this one. There we go. That's straightforward enough. I want to mark, well, let's be thorough. So the idea was, I'll just show you again, because it's easier to show than to tell in this case. So you know the search buffer, right? The list of matches on a particular string. I'm going to get a list of matches for the word for. Now I've added these new lines, these blank lines between each chunk of separate buffers. So like these are all in one buffer, these are all in one buffer. And so you can now like skip through like this and look at, okay, in this buffer, skip to there. And now the new thing we have is an extension of the thing for type. So I'm going to do this, and we're going to find somewhere where we get a lot of good structs. Uh-oh. Hit the crash. We hit the crash. This is on allocate. Ooh, this is on allocate at the beginning of an allocation. the heap is real. Is this heap real? Yeah, this heap is real. So it's mostly the new heap that seems to be the source of a lot of trouble. Now that could just be from other pieces of code trashing the heap. That's the thing we have to be aware of still. So like, here's the sentinel. Its next and previous both look good. If I go to its previous, it looks like wait a minute. Previous. Next is totally different. Next. Previous is correct. Okay. So yeah, this is looks like someone's just trampling this node here. Next. Next. And here's the trampled node. Workspace, scope ID 52, so it has two objects already, and this is the third object that we are creating inside of it. That conforms with the fact that there are two things sitting in there. One of those two things is probably the jump array. Well, this right here says it has no buffer markers, so I guess it has two other arrays sitting in it for some reason. Which, this might be the... Oh, I know what this bug is. Well, I mean, I know what the outer layer of the bug is. I don't know what the inner layer of the bug is still. I don't know exactly what went wrong here. It's pretty hard to recreate. Alright, so I'm not sure how effective it will be to actually just sit around waiting for us to hit this thing, because what appears to be happening is memory corruption. So let me actually look at the memory instead. So yeah, this and this look like a 5 and a 1 and a couple of 16-bit numbers and a 0. What is this if I turn it into a... Well, hold on. Let me look at So there's the address of the messed up node. Here's the address of the node before the messed up node. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to say treat, so if that there is the in order heap node. Size 64. Okay. So I'm going to take this again and add 64. Or, no, I'm going to take this and add 1. Wrap it like that and go U8 pointer 64. And now if I just extend that a little bit more, yeah, that just looks like someone's storing their data in there, kind of, and overwriting the next node in the process. Okay, I know what we need to do. I know how we'll catch more problems. I need to add heap checks here. So if we're doing heap checks, then let's see. Get dynamic object putter. Header putter, right. But I think I already have a get workspace. Yeah. So get dynamic workspace exists. Okay. It's not really what I want though, is it? What I really want is crashing. Oh no. Okay. That'll happen from time to time. Okay. So I'm running some of the latest stuff still. Let's get back to API implementation and see what we lost. Alright, there we go. I feel like this is just like the endless stream. Yeah, we're going on 3 hours. I'll take a quick break before we hit 3, I think. I just have a lot of 4coder energy these days, though, I guess. These are just gonna vaporize, I think. So that gives me a memory pointer. And then if I want to get the item size, I can just do object header, object, oops, that should be a dot, header, item size. Count. Okay. Why am I getting the dynamic memory putter? I just need to do object putters dot header does not equal 0 here. Plugging away, plugging away. Don't need this, it's just type. Oh, we do need that, we just don't need this. It's just type. Yes, that's possible. It's going to be a little bit of work on your part, and there's no reason to wait for the new API because the new API will be pretty more orthogonal to what you've described, Jim. So basically, here's what's going on there for you. First of all, the UI stuff all is contained within views. The view organization structure stuff isn't being touched in this build. As far as is it possible, it's not trivially possible. But what you do have is the following pieces of information. You have a way to iterate all of the existing views, a way to get the screen coordinates for each view, and then you also know sort of any other information you need about where within your view your cursor is and stuff, which might be important. So suppose you have in your case, it's like you have 3 views, right? 1, 2, 3, and then possibly one down here. You have to decide what shift right and shift left mean, and if shift up and down, what does that do when there's nothing up or below you? What does shift right mean when there's 2 options to switch to? And so you're going to have to do some kind of either you're going to hard code the meaning of each view in the end anyway, or you're going to do it based on positions, in which case I imagine that it's like if you're right here and you switch to the right, you come over here, but if we scrolled like this and you switch to the right, it might choose this one, or it would choose the larger of the two unless they're even, then pick whichever one's closer to the cursor, stuff like that. There's a lot of that for you to figure out, but there's no way for you to find the parented structure of the views right now. So yeah, what you can do is you can shift right and say, where's the XY value of this cursor? What's the first view I hit that isn't this view when I cast the line to the right? Oh, it's this one. Switch to it. Yeah, you can do that. You have enough information. You'll have to, every time you cast one of those lines, iterate up to 16 views, but that's not going to hurt you. Like I said, there's only 16 of them. Just, iterate all the views, build your little collection of recs, and then do a line cast to find which one you hit, and then backwards back that up to which view actually needs to be switched in. You'll have to do a little bit of work when you ask for the position of the cursor, because that comes in view relative coordinates. So you'll have to ask for the current view's position, get the current view's cursor position, turn this relative thing into an absolute thing by adding those together, then do your loop ignoring this view to build the structure of recs, and then cast in whichever direction you need to cast in to find your hit. And then you might be able to find ways to optimize that so that you're not actually building all those recs, but why not just do it the easy way, right? That's what my suggestion is. Boom. Okay, so having done all that work, what we've achieved is now we have access to the workspace pointer from in here. All that refactoring, it led to some nice code deletes, but it was about getting the workspace pointer into here, which we used to be all locked up inside this call and not coming out of it. Okay, so now that we have it, what did I want to do with it? I wanted to check its heap after every load and store. So, where is the heap? Memory bank. Okay, so I want to do heap check. Heap is good. Okay, 1 second. Heap assert good. Object putters dot workspace membank dot heap. There we go. Alright, so we got those heap checks in. I think that that's good enough. Now let's get back to the to-do list. So we're tracking down those bugs, but in the meantime, I wanted to test this feature. I was trying to test it when we hit the bug. Okay. So let me find layer code load project. Struct. Take me here. Ooh, we hit it again. Aha! This time it's in the store data. Okay. First index 0 times item size into from the mem count times the item size. Okay, so our item size is 20, our item count is 113, so this is all seems to suggest that we have enough space. Now it could be that the heap has failed to actually give us enough space. It could also be that we failed to ask for enough space. So this header says that it's a type 1. A type 1 comes from here, and the amount we asked for was, you see it just says count plus size of. It needs to be count times item size plus size of. Bing, 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 we found the bug. Alright, 2396. That's how it's done, folks. In API implementation, 2396. Count times, well, let's just do size. Oops. Count times item size. There we go. So we tracked down that major bug. Gotten 2 heap corruption bugs so far today. I'm hopeful we'll be able to do all the bounds checking we need to make sure that users never actually stumble into that. I mean, they also have the heap as a library which they can access from their side, but I'm hoping that over time they'll use that less and less anyway, in favor of just putting everything in the global scope so that it's memory checked for them. Bounds checked and whatnot. If they need a lot of small allocations, they'll have to, you know, get a little creative, do some work. But for a few big allocations, hopefully they'll use this new system and just put it in the global scope, and there you go. Okay, now let's try this again. Pull up the layer. I load the project. I find all the structs. There we go. Jump to there. Very good, very good. Now I'm going to just pop that like that. Well, let me find one of these that I'm actually using though, because there's some that I'm not using. Arena. There we go. Boom. Find all occurrences of arena. Boom. Boom. Control Shift T. Now how do I do type? Is it Control Shift D? No, that's a delete. Alt D. Alt Shift T. There it is. Alt Shift T. Boom. Good. And then we can fix that. Save and close. Very good. Okay, so this one is done. Okay. While we're still dealing with search related stuff, let's do this one. Okay, so what we want to do here is figure out, oh right, I have to be careful. feel like that should just be its own thing, right? I mean, that's what this really comes down to, is we submit a size, we say we're going to push this much shit. Is there enough space for that? No? Well then flush whatever you've got and then push that much space for me. That could be a reusable bit. Because now I'm going to do this for a third time down here when I say no matches message. Alright, I think that once this is done, that'll be enough progress for one single day. I'm going to get this working and abstract that idea of push, check, flush, push. Alright, please find, I'm looking for a string called foobarfaz. Oh, no matches. Alright. It's actually more of a feature. Okay. We will Alright, so we try to reserve that many bytes. We flush whatever we've got so far. End the temp, thus putting the partition back to full, like, fully freed. And then push reserve what we want again. Here we're asserting mem does not equal 0, so that you can't ever push something that's so big the partition can't ever fit it. That would be bad. And then This just becomes buffered memory reserve app part temp output buffer strlen this right here becomes new line, all that stuff, search buffer app part temp, and this part down here becomes no matches message out, no matches message length, scratch, doop, doop, doop. Alright, and now we want to just test a few things. Layer code load project. Let's do a quick search for all the structs. Yep, that's all still working quite nice. Now let's do a search for the foo fizzbaz bar. No matches. Okay, and that's good. That's good. So I'm comfortable to say that all of this is working, and I'm gonna wrap up and take a good little break. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, something like this. I don't know. But we got a lot done. Recap here. I finished updating this cooperative memory API. I tracked down 2 heap corruption bugs related to this new API's implementation. We added a couple nice little features with the search stuff. We tracked down and fixed this problem with the file settings. We reorganized this code, I mean to say, so that it's nice and tidy now, much more reasonable. We fixed this canceling search problem. We added a new type matching pattern. These are the things I have left to do. These are getting a little bit closer to serious serious problems. So I'm going to do these when I come back, and see if I can't get some of these other ones done. This one's going to be really serious. I'm going to demote it though because it's also non-critical, just annoyance. Doop doop doop. Yeah, it's treating that as 4 separate tokens. Doop 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 doop. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Yeah, Flying Solomon, I fixed that. That was the cancel search shouldn't bring up the search window bug. This reminds me, I have, as well as while I'm doing this, I also have the look at regression, and this isn't much of a feature. Open paired file bug. When you do this now, if I go to, let me think of one that has it, fored.cpp, this used to open in the other window, and now Alt2 just toggles right here in this window. Not sure how everyone feels about that, but I don't like it. I am used to being able to hit Alt2 and getting the header on this other panel, so I'm going to go in and fix that as well. Okay. Oh man, I need to eat, maybe take a nap. It feels like, and I will be back hopefully within less than an hour, but possibly an hour from now, at the longest. See you guys in a bit.